Welcome to XNet Services Relayer Video Guides. This is a multi-episode series going over the very beginnings of what you need to get started with a relayer, all the way to powerful and complete deployments. In this episode, episode 2, we're going over setting up an S3 app and using it for the first time. We're looking here at the relayer dashboard. This should be familiar if you finished episode 1. By this point, in your configuration tab, you should have an endpoint access key and endpoint secret key that is customized. And under File Manager, you should have at least one bucket created. Now in this case, although you can use any wealth of S3 apps, under our resources section on S3 apps, you can find a number of S3 apps that we've already tested and demonstrated integration for. For example, CloudBerry Pro, Synology Hyper Backup, Veeam. This is a major one. But if you scroll down, you can also find Mountain Duck, which is what we're going to be demonstrating today. So what we'll need Mountain Duck already installed. I have that ready here. And we'll go to create and edit a bookmark. We need to change our protocol to Amazon S3, change our server to our local IP in this case, point it to our Minio port, which defaults to 9000, and this access key and secret key should match what we set up in our config. The path should match what we had in the file manager for our bucket, in this case shared. And the drive letter we can manually set, but in this case I'll leave it to auto. We can now try connecting. This does give us a warning that the certificate is invalid. This is expected because after finishing episode 1, we are still using the self-signed certificate. We'll continue in this case. And here I can see on D drive, I can see this Amazon S3 drive mounted. If I open it, I can also see 2 of the files that are already uploaded here. And if I try uploading a new file, we should be able to see momentarily that it is uploaded to the pending uploads. Here it is on the dashboard. And if we refresh our Minio page, it also shows up. So using this, you're able to collaborate with multiple people simultaneously on something that is able to be mounted to your local file system very natively and very neatly. This is one of the strengths of native S3 support. There are a huge manner of apps that all achieve similar polished features, workload integration, all sorts of very nice professional tools to achieve various productivity tasks. And to speak to that, I have on the call with me as well, I have one of our partners, Donald. How are you doing today?
Hi, good, thanks.
Good to hear. So I understand you've used a number of S3 apps yourself, including Mountain Duck, actually. Can you speak to how are you using those for productivity, for backups? What kind of purposes are you using some of your S3 apps?
Mostly for, we tend to keep a copy of all of our files in the cloud. So it makes sense rather than have it locally. So I do that used as a cloud storage or cloud drive, and also for backups, among other things. But I would say that 90% of the time we're just storing our whatever files, or company files, corporate files, pretty much everything in our cloud drive, which is essentially using Mountain Docker or something like that to achieve that end.
Awesome. So I've also heard that you're using Duplicati. That's used for like computer system and image backups. Is that right?
Correct. Yes. So we use Duplicati, and because obviously this is a new product for us, we the relayer is a new solution for us. We tested on different S3 type of backup systems, including this other open source tool called Petya, there's MSP 360, CloudBerry, I think you mentioned before. I mean, it's for our experiences, it works for pretty much everything we've thrown at it.
That's super. So having looked through a couple of these S3 app setups, it seems like the common thread between them and all that's really needed in order to use a relayer as a valid endpoint It seems to be selecting, so in this case, Duplicati calls it storage type, but it's picking the S3 protocol and then the server kind of endpoint. So you need to provide, in our case, it was a local IP. If people are far enough along that they're already setting up a domain and their own certs, which is, in our case, that's episode 4, which we will get to, then that can be a nice, neat URL. But then the other thing that you really need, the access ID and the access key in our config, that's, endpoint access key, endpoint secret key. So you really just need to pick S3 protocol, have a URL, have your login credentials, so your user and your password key, and then a bucket name. And that's really all you need, just those couple items. And you're able to, in some cases, if you already have jumped ahead to episode 4 and have a domain and a cert and a proxy and all that, you can log in from anywhere in the world to any of your buckets, or depending on how your IAM is set up, which we'll get to in the next episode, and be able to plug away with your productivity tools. So that's one of the strengths that we're really proud of.
I mean, it's no different from any other S3 cloud provider that we've used in the past. So in terms of its capability or compatibility with the products, that's the way.
Amazing. Well, thank you for speaking to that. As someone that has extensive experience using these kinds of apps. Thank you for joining us today, Donald.
Okay, thank you.
As always, you should be following along in our docs, even as we cover steps in this guide. This will ensure that you don't miss any important steps and have the most current and up-to-date information, which is always in our docs. If you're feeling good and you have everything so far under control, continue to episode 3, where we discuss identity and access management and what that means for you and your relay use.